Anyway, so Hatsumi Sensei has said more than once that the scrolls are like menus, right? They show you the dish, right? They show you what's available, but not how to cook it, not how to prepare it. Right? So, what this kind of points to is that the brevity forces reliance on kuden and lived transmission rather than paper, right? It's not like a YouTube video or a book, right, with things written out. Okay, Tanomura Sensei from the Genbukan has written that Kurai Dori is the essence of controlling Mai, right? Mai, M-A hyphen A-I, Mai, right? Distance, space, interval, that kind of thing, right? Didn't I do a whiteboard Wednesday on that, James? Long time ago. I think so.
I think it was a while ago. But yeah.
Yeah, a while ago. My, because my joke is I'm not talking about my, right? So anyway, if you can dig that out, that goes into it much more deeply. But anyway, it's the essence of controlling my, right? And he warned that kamae are meaningless without this deeper understanding, right? This is one of those lines between kamae and dachi, right? These postures as we know them or as we're supposed to know them, right? And a stance, right? A snapshot in time. Okay. Manaka Sensei, head of the Jinenkan, right, has said that Kurai Dori is the rhythm and timing of taking space. He also said, even if you know hundreds of kamae, without Kurai Dori, they're only poses. Okay. It's kind of like somebody who's a car collector, right? Um, but they don't know how to drive. Right? They can give you all the stats about the kamae or about the car. They can tell you all the parts. They can tell you when modifications were made, all kinds of things, right? But they can't drive, right? Or the difference between somebody who, let's say, can ride a bike, but has taken that skill into very specific areas, like uh, you know, uh, cross country or marathon kind of things, where they have to be able to navigate that bike on different types of terrain, different surfaces, different, uh, just different areas. It's very, very different. Okay. So, um, when we're talking about kurai dori, right, we're talking about taking space. Okay. Dori means to take, to capture. Anybody who caught last week's episode or Whiteboard Wednesday or whatever, we were talking about the role of the uke, right? The uke's responsibility in training, right? And we were talking about the dichotomy, right, between uke and tori, right? Tori, dori, it's the same, right? To take, to seize, to capture, to control, right? Um, Kurai Dori is pointing to something that's much more than posture, right? It's much more than much more than a stance. Right? But again, when people look at the scroll, what they see is a list of 5 kamae. Right? I'll talk about those here more in a bit, but I want to continue down this Kurai Dori road for just a bit. Okay, so Kurai Dori can be translated as taking position, can be translated as taking or catching space or catching the proper space, right? Um, but in Budo, in Ninjutsu context, right, like all things, it's deeper. Okay. Um, it points to, we'll talk about three things here, right? Dominating Mai, or dominating distance. Okay. So not just standing in space, but catching and controlling the opponent's options. So their movement is already constrained. Right? I talk in our program, I talked to my Shinobi Kai folks, my Nimpo Masterclass, all you guys that are in the upper level online programs, but also my advanced students that when they're Nidan moving toward Sandan, right? Uh, one of the one of the skills that I'm looking for is the student's ability to get the attacker, to get the uke, to throw what the tori, what the defender wants them to throw. Okay, we're already controlling things long before he throws anything. Okay, and even if we're not at that point where we can control what he throws, okay, if I can eliminate and minimize what he can throw, that's a huge thing. Okay, so instead of matching stance for stance, or worse yet, falling into the habit of, he starts bouncing around or doing whatever he does, and we start doing our thing, but the next thing you know, subconsciously we're bouncing, and well, that's not good, right? um, but instead of matching Kamae for posture, right, he takes up a fight stance, so I take up a fight stance, and uh, it's not about doing it the same way. Right? He's a puncher, so I'm going to punch. He's a grappler, so I'm going to grab. Okay. There's a stage where I want students to understand their kamae as ways to control space. And it's not just the space between us, it's also the alignment of things. So he can't do what he wants to do or the things that he does well, right? And his stance gives that away, right? His fight stance. I don't care, boxer, taekwondo, I don't care, right? So if we understand, if we can read that, and then we can take up the kamae, one of several kamae, that eliminate options and minimize access, then he's starting from a negative and not us. Okay. Second thing we look at here is controlling or taking psychological space. Okay. Freezing, unbalancing, or disrupting the opponent's spirit before he even launches anything, right? This kind of comes off of that physical, but sometimes the kamae, and I've talked about this here in the last couple of episodes, or Whiteboard Wednesdays, where I was talking about hira, right? Hira is like a really powerful kamae, right? As a matter of fact, uh, is it tomorrow's class? Tomorrow's class. We're going to be looking at Shizen no Kamae, right? For at least part of the class, right? Another part probably do a little bit with sword or whatever, but we're going to take a look at Shizen, because Shizen is so highly underrated, right? It is easily dismissed. I mean, how freaking difficult can it be? You're just standing there. I used to think that too. Okay, and then I found out that it's anything but just standing there, right? And certain lineages, like Gyokoryu, right, call Shizen no Kamae Hira no Kamae, right? In Hatsumi Sensei's first book in English that Stephen Hayes helped him put out, in the section on Kamae, right? The Kamae are divided into aggressive Kamae, defensive Kamae, that kind of thing, right? Shizen is in the section on receiving Kamae, right next to Hira no Kamae and Hoko no Kamae. Okay? So is it that easy? No. So for those of you guys in my programs and whatnot, tomorrow's going to be a cool ride. Anyway, but those kamae like that, hira, shizen, right? They do things in the brain, right? They either get somebody to make a quick assumption and overcommit really fast, right? Probably before they should. Well, definitely before they should, right? And other people that are really good, the ones you really have to worry about, right? Those kamae, see, they look at your eyes, then they look at your body, and your body looks like it's wide open and it's an easy target, but they look at your eyes that either say, yeah, come on in, or not in the briar patch, if anybody knows that reference. Um, and then they start second guessing themselves, those kind of things, right? Um, when we talk about taking space, when we talk about controlling space, and Hazumi Sensei's talked about these things, it's not always talking about the physical space. Okay. Definitely want to be controlling the space between their ears. Okay. And then there's also relational space. Okay. And this circles back to the distance, right? Because every kamae, right? Profiled kamae control the distance and his options differently than more compacted kind of things, right? A standard jumonji compared to a hira jumonji. All of these things, right? They control the distance and his perception of how close he can get, what's safe, what's not. It's much like using any of the weapons, right? The one thing you want to do is disguise the length of the weapon so he can't take proper distance. Okay. You're dominating the space because he can't be sure about what's safe and what isn't. Okay. When it comes to relational space, we go back to that kamae reference that I had where we're going to match the kamae to his fight posture, right? So if he's one of these guys, right, the hands are in tight and he fights from in here, or the hand on the hip and it pops out, that way and whatnot, then I want to be controlling center, right? If he's one of these guys that comes in and out and around and whatnot, right, then I want to be in a different posture that kind of that accounts for those things. Okay, so when we're talking about taking space, we're talking about taking relational space, right? We're positioning ourselves so that everything the opponent could do is already accounted for. It's like playing chess. Okay, so while it looks like we are waiting for him to throw something so we can respond to it, the reality at this level is we've already accounted for the things that he could do. So he has a choice. Try it anyway. Make up something new on the fly and hope that it works, or he's not that good and he's going to throw something that the Kamae's already accounted for. And so we're able to assess his fight intelligence, so to speak. Okay. Takuma Sensei described Kurai Dori as not waiting in posture, but taking the place where the opponent has no place. Okay. And Manaka Sensei has explained that Kurai Dori is not, again, not static stance, but the ability to appear already in the right place before the fight has started, before it's begun. Okay. So we're already there. It's like the stories of Musashi, right? Showing up like early, right? I know there's lots of stories of him showing up late and pissing the guy off and whatnot, but when he did that, he controlled the space between the guy's ears. Okay. This guy's slovenly, which means he can't be that good of a swordsman. He's disrespectful. I got to cut this guy down. And so now he's thinking about all of these things other than the guy in front of him. Okay. So, but when you show up ahead of time and you're waiting, you've already dictated space, alignment, sun's at your back. It's going to be in his eyes. You've dictated the time of day where the sun is going to be low enough that it's in his eyes and not kind of. Well, but my back is to the sun. Yeah, well, there's a couple of hour uh, leeway in there, right? I want it to be low on the horizon over my shoulder. Too low, I'll be in the way, right? My body will be blocking the sun. Too early, it's up higher and it's not going to have the same kind of effect, right? There's a certain time where it's going to be coming over my shoulder or just over the top of my head that for him to look at me, it creates a halo around me, which distorts my shape, position, uh, the lines and whatnot, but it's in his freaking eyes, right? And if it's not the sun, then it's the dew soaked grass, right? Or whatever, right? Workers coming to work or whatever. Okay. So again, we're setting things up before the fight has started. Most people take up kamae and then wait for the fight to start. They take up kamae and then they wait for the uke to attack. When the reality is that when I take up kamae, the fight has already started and I initiated by controlling the space. I attacked him with my kamae. Okay. It's one of the most important lessons that I ever learned in Isuku Sensei's dojo, right? But kamae is a weapon. To take kamae is to attack him. Many different levels.